So Chelsea came from behind to beat Real Betis and they won the Conference League. I took Betis and I thought by halftime I was going to be right with that. But it was a totally different Chelsea in the second half. And congratulations to Maresca and the players and everybody associated with that team. Caught up with Bedag Igbali this morning, Simon, one of the owners, who was just back. Maybe another time he'll speak to us. Bit rushed this morning. But anyway, appreciated the call. Champions League qualification and a trophy. What do you think, Simon, before we hear from Maresca? Can this be a springboard for more success for them?
Well, it's not going to be disadvantageous, is it? I mean, I have tipped Chelsea for some time to make a full recovery and to not be the victims of the agenda or the narratives being created around their owners.
And what does a full recovery look like?
To be a winning side and to be an elite football side, whether that's knocking on the door of the Premier League, winning it, or winning the major trophies, of which the European Conference League is not one.
So a return to the Abramovich era Chelsea.
Well, this people say, I was listening to the calls yesterday, we're from a different era, we know what Chelsea was like when, Ken Bates was there in the 80s and they had electric fences. But that era's long gone.
Yeah.
And this new ownership hasn't stopped. And you haven't got a new ownership which has suddenly done something different to Abramovich. You've got a new ownership which has done the same things as Abramovich done, except they've done it bigger, i.e. they've probably spent more money.
Yeah.
So it is incumbent upon the football management and the players to start delivering outcomes. They've finished fourth in the Premier League. They've won the trophy that they could win in Europe. That's all they can do. Whether it's a competition that's been concocted out of financial opportunity or UEFA wanting to occupy as many spaces in Europe as they possibly can. I don't think it's a necessary tournament, but if you're in it, you win it.
Oh, of course.
They've done that.
Yeah.
They were excellent in the second half. They weren't in the first. But does it kick on? Could they make a serious challenge for the Premier League? They could make a challenge. I don't see them being ready to win the Premier League, but that depends what they do in the summer. If they supplement, if they bring in centre forwards like they're supposedly going to do with Liam Delap, who's at the very beginning of his career, but we'll see if he's good enough to translate. Because we've seen young players like Rasmus Højlund being bought for Man United at big transfer fees and not translating.
Yeah.
So we'll see if he can do that. Nicholas Jackson doesn't score enough goals, so they need somebody that possibly does. But we'll also see what the opposition does, because it's not just about what Chelsea's challenges are. They're now fourth. They've now set themselves, Maresca set himself a relatively higher standard than what's been achieved over the last 2 or 3 years. He's got to kick on from that. He's won something. I would expect Chelsea to cement themselves in the Champions League spots next year, but I don't think they're going to win the league next year.
Right. I mean, this time around, that 15-point gap between themselves and Liverpool. So that's the kind of distance they've got to bridge. But sure, when you ask Maresca, as he was asked last night post-match, is it something that you can springboard from? Is it a starting point and a new starting point for Chelsea? Oh, yes, it is.
To build a winner mentality, you need to win games, you need to win competition, and for sure the trophy we won tonight is going to make us better. But also I'm very proud about the path or the journey we have done in the Premier League. That for me is the most difficult competition in the world. You have to be consistent. It's 38 games, and this player they show during this. That's why after Nottingham Forest my outburst was a little bit exaggerate, but the reason why is just because in 38 games you need to be consistent, and with young squad, I mean the youngest squad in the history of Premier League, it's something unbelievable.
I swear in my life people listen to you. That you said he went over the top after the Forest result.
No, that's nothing to do with us. It's to do with the fact that he's reflected and he's wise enough to know that perhaps he stepped across the line and has the wherewithal, on the back of a win, of course, to turn around and say, I was a little bit amplified, a little bit exaggerated.
Yeah.
And that's good. Well done, him, because I think ultimately what he said was silly and it's a hostage to fortune for him in the future. Because he was, and he knows himself, he was also someone that talked down his own team. So it was a little bit steeped in hypocrisy, which is one of the things I've read about him in the Mail today.
Okay.
But the fact is that they've gone and done their job. They, in the end, after Betis were very good in the first half, not much of Anthony there, was there?
No, I didn't see much of him.
All this
Isco ran out of gas.
All this furore about Anthony and how wonderful he is.
Oh, yeah.
Reality is he came up against a decent left back, and that was the end of him, right? But the fact of the matter is that they did their job in the second half. Cole Palmer created outcomes that these teammates could take advantage of, and off they went and turned it into, in the end, a moderately comfortable win for Chelsea on paper.
Yeah, the owners, Bowley and Igbali, I mean, have they now shed the idiot American owner perception? Have they been proven right in the end, Simon? Or £1 billion spend later? Is it about time something like this happened?
Well, I didn't ever think they were idiot owners, and I didn't even think that they were plaid-wearing.
But that was the perception.
That was the narrative that was being spun out, and people were offended on how much money they were spending. People were offended by how much money Chelsea was spending, which is none of other people's business. And there seemed to be this underlying concern about how much. I mean, the owners weren't concerned.
No, but I'm not sure anybody was offended. It was largely true what was being said.
They was very critical.
Spent $1 billion.
So what? That's their money.
But at one stage made them worse.
But that's their money, and ultimately, people being concerned. Well, okay, let's say not offended, let's say concerned, or observing how much money. What's it got to do with you? If the Chelsea ownership aren't worried, why are they spending so much money? How much they spend on Fernandes? Why are they putting them on 8-year contracts? What's it got to do with you? If they're not concerned by it, then why should you be concerned on their behalf? Have they validated their thinking? Well, no, they've done what they should have done, and they've taken a little bit longer than they should have done to get there. Your first season, you give them a pass on because they picked up a new shiny thing. They wanted to impress themselves upon it. They wanted to learn about it. They allowed certain sections of the media to start peddling a narrative that Bowley was the sporting director. No, what Bowley did, if I read the room, was avail himself of information to understand what a sporting director's function was. So when he bleeding well employed one, he knew what he wanted from him.
Right.
So you make the idea that Bowley's buying the players. No, he's availing himself of a significant level of information. So when he devolves the authority down to people that are going to be doing it on a day-to-day basis, he understands why they're doing it and what they're doing. That's good management. That's good ownership. Then you've got the narrative. That's what he does forever and a day. Of course, then the second season with Pochettino had its own pits and falls, but I think now this is where they should be.
Right.
This is not where they shouldn't be. This isn't some revelation.
Right.
Chelsea have won the European Conference League, which, by the way, they should.
Yeah.
And they finished fourth in the Premier League, which, by the way, they should.
Right, let's put it out this morning, Simon. I'm with you with everything you've said. On the ownership thing, I think they had they had a bit to do to win over everybody. But I agree that, the £1 billion spend did stick in the throat of a lot of people. Like, how come you've spent that and you've made them worse? That was a perception of that. There was no doubt that was a perception. But now that they've got silverware and they've a Champions League place next season, you got to say, this thing's beginning to motor.
I mean, the observation of how much money you've spent and how you spend it is always up for opinion. And everybody's got to have instantaneous gratification because nothing can ever be built.
No.
There's so much irony in this world. We say, give a manager stability, give him time, but judge everybody instantaneously. Don't people see the juxtaposition?
It's a contradiction, I get that. Simon, on Chelsea, have they now surely earned gold standard status? A metaphorical and literal blue ribbon Premier League brand. Are they that?
I don't know. I was listening to some very reductive conversation on the breakfast show about who's the biggest club in London, and it was based upon some of the rantings of Jason Cundy about the various clubs and their achievements. It depends what you define as a big football club, in my view. If you define it by achievements, fan bases, perceptions around the world, etc., etc., etc. Look, I've always felt that Chelsea are a significant football club, but I've always
thought they were manufactured as well.
But I do. I think, but depends what I mean by manufactured, because in the end of the day, it's all about money. Some of that money is organically generated by clubs like Manchester United that are able to be bought in a very unpleasant fashion that the fans don't appreciate in terms of leveraging, but are able to create such huge revenue streams that whilst they spend a lot of money in the transfer market, it is generated money. It isn't a benefactor coming in and going, right, I'm going to take this football club and I'm going to do something remarkably different with it. And it's not going to be of its own volition. I'm going to build it. My sheer willpower and my bank balance is going to be the thing that changes the direction of travel of this football club, not potentially its own natural order. So I think Chelsea over the last 20 years, and certainly since Abramovich came through the door in 2003, have elevated themselves as a significant football club for achievements. I'm not sure.
First club to win all four of UEFA's club competitions.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure that's a nice little marketing wrap around, but I'm pretty sure that they didn't want to work their way backwards, did they? I mean, they've worked their way down to the bottom of the pile of European winning top tournaments to be able to make that observation.
Yeah.
But I look at them and think they're a decent brand. I think the reasons why Bowley bought bought them is because I think he feels there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of scope and scale, and a lot of opportunity to really build them and build their fan base, which will have other benefits to him in and around the world of businesses that he owns. But I still think they're a way off the sort of legacy brands like Arsenal, like Manchester United, like Liverpool.
I was waiting for you to say that. How are they way off? How can they be way off now because of what they've achieved? They're the most successful club this century in the Premier League.
It depends what metric you measure them by. I mean, we listen to this nonsense.
They're a legacy club now.
Well, they aren't really. They're not a a legacy club composes of a variety of different things. One of them is heritage. And despite being the peacocks and the cock of the walk of the King's Road, they were a sort of club that was a little bit more flash than cash at times. You know, they dropped into the second tier of English football. They had a huge problem around their fan base for a significant period of time.
Yeah, but that was a while back.
I know, but it's all part of this.
They're now English football's most successful club this century.
This is all part.
They have to be a legacy club now.
This is all part of the mix. I mean, in the end of the day, you build legacies on the back of winning things. So I get that. And of course, if they carry on being part of the next generation, because the next generation of fans are not going to remember Manchester United from 1992 to 1997, win 4 out of 5 Premier Leagues and being this fabulous football club that everyone admires, if Man United don't step back up to the plate. Hence the reasons why the analogy that I've given previously about Manchester City being Red Bull and Manchester United being Ferrari will begin to erode, because ultimately the next generation will only look at winning.
Right.
And so around the world, when you're in Malaysia, ironically, or whether you're in Australasia or whether you're in Africa, you will see the increase in representation of the other clubs rather than Manchester United and Liverpool that have been so iconic to English football, and of course Arsenal.
We're about to see if they can add to that in the Club World Cup, which is coming up very soon. It's 10:25. We'll go to the phone lines because so many Chelsea fans, as we thought, want to come through and join us this morning on the show, and that's fine by us. On the ownership and on Maresca, as Chelsea fans, are you one round at last? Here's Tony, big Chelsea fan. Tony, you're first up. Good morning. How do you feel about Maresca? How do you feel about your owners now?
I think he's slightly out of his depth. I think that they didn't play well in the first half and they played well in the second half. Good teams play well in both halves. I don't think he's going to last at Chelsea because I think they're trigger happy. I think that if they lose the first half a dozen games or so in the next season, I think he'll be out. I think he won last night by luck, not a couple of skillful players. They're not the Chelsea I remember of the 60s.
Tony, 4-1.
Yeah, no, 4-1. The first half was rubbish. They were losing. Now, he's a product, Maresca, of Guardiola. Pass it side to side to side to side. Don't attack. So is Arteta, another serial loser, side to side to side to side, don't attack. So if Arteta gets a centre forward, what's he going to do? Still pass side to side to side and pass it through the middle to the centre forward. Centre forwards need crosses to control and smash in the back of the net.
Tony, you said so do other serial losers. Chelsea have become the first club to win all 4 of UEFA's club competitions.
Yeah, that's fine. We're talking about Maresca, aren't we? Will he take them forward and win more? I don't think so, and I'm really, really quite worried about it because I love Chelsea. Brought up around there as a boy.
Goodness me, Tony, you've surprised me this morning.
Do you not think, Tony, that they are better than 12 months ago?
Definitely better. But you're looking forward to the next 2, 3, 4 seasons. Is he the man to maintain this level? I don't think so.
Yeah,
fair enough. Tony, good call. And it's got us thinking. I wonder if Jason's thinking along similar lines. Tony, thank you. Jason, good morning. What did you make of that call from Tony there? Where do you stand on that?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Good morning. Good, thank you, mate. How do you feel about it all?
Yeah, I just feel that, let's be honest, I'm not getting too carried away. Simon hit the nail on the head when he said that Chelsea were in a competition that they should have won and they should be finishing 4th when you talk about the spend. My concern is who they've spent all that money on. When you start to talk about the quality of players, I'm not convinced they've spent a lot of money on very average players. So the jury's still out for me at this moment in time. I'm not getting...
Well, such as who? Who do you consider as an average player based upon what they've spent?
Well, I think Enzo. I think Enzo is an average player for 100 million. I think he's very average. Yeah, I do. Caicedo's starting to show his form. He's starting to show what he can do. I think Nicholas Jackson isn't up to scratch as a lead line striker. I really don't. I don't buy into he's young. I think the game's getting younger nowadays anyway, so you can't hide behind a player being 23, 24, not representing. That's the way the game's going. We're seeing players of 21 years old, 22 years old, actually doing good things.
And Jason, do you back Maresca for the long term?
No, I don't. No.
Goodness me, this is amazing this morning. Right. Okay. No, this is the power of it. I love this. We rely on you coming on and joining us, and you're at liberty to say what you want. And Carl, you're exactly the same. Carl's another Chelsea fan who's joining us just before the break. Carl, there's a bit of pessimism around this morning, even off the back of a European trophy being won last night. Where'd you stand? Good morning.
Well, I can't agree with the other two lads, I'm afraid. What I wanted from this season was a settled side and a settled manager. The last couple of seasons have been all over the place. You've got to look at Maresca and see how he's brought players on, like Casado, like Fernandez, like Cucurella. The last couple of seasons have been all over the place. This is a settled squad that's can achieve things. I really do believe that.
So Carl, as opposed to singing "We want our Chelsea back," you're singing this morning, "We've got our Chelsea back."
No, I'm not saying we've got our Chelsea back at the moment, but it's getting there. It's on the verge, I feel, and I think Maresca is the man to take us forward because he's bringing those young players, average squad of 23 years old, he's bringing them on, and if we can keep that squad together and keep them settled, I think we could go on next season.
All right, Carl, great call. Thank you very much indeed. We are discussing Manchester United, who are not in this part of the world at the moment, but it also begs the question, is there no such thing as bad press when cash is flashed by sponsors? So what am I talking about? They boarded a flight, Manchester, Amarim and the players and the rest of them. They boarded a flight hours after bringing the Premier League season to a close, as everybody else did, on Sunday. After engaging in fan activities and even a bus parade, they took to the pitch in the first of two matches. And this was a match against the ASEAN All-Stars. And I'm afraid it ended in defeat. They failed to score for their fans over on the other side of the world. Of course, they're in Southeast Asia at this time. Their opponents were an exhibition side comprising of players from all around Southeast Asia and Australia. But they lost and they were even booed. This was Amarim on that.
I feel always guilty. I said that in the last game. I'm always guilty of the performance of the team, no matter what. And since I'm here in the first day, I am guilty. Then the boost from the fans, I think it's something that we need, maybe, because every game that we lost in the Premier League, they were always there. So it's like the way of playing. If they see that it is not working, they will change the way they behave. But I felt then when we finish and we walk away, like every time the supporter was with us. And again, let's wait for the next season.
He's not having much luck at the moment, is he, Amarim? There is nothing really of any positive nature to talk about just now.
You make your own luck, don't you?
They go all the way to Malaysia. Baking hot temperatures, 30 plus yesterday. He's taken 27 players over there. Picks a team, 72,000 fans turn up to watch them. And in the eyes of the fans, they are their heroes. They are their heroes. They love Manchester United and they are there to see them, to see Garnacho and Bruno and the rest of them, and they lose by a single goal to nil, and they're booed. I mean, Simon, I know you will only say, "Oh, it's a post-season tour, and it brings in £8 million," but it's not that great a look, is it?
No, but I mean, the optics of things are what we live by so much in society, and I don't always appreciate that. You know, there's people in the digital world, the Mark Goldbridges of the world, that can bark down their little digital audience or big digital audiences about how appalling it is. It's a meaningless game.
Yeah,
it's not great to lose these games, and yes, of course they've booed it, and Ruben Amorim can make another series of cryptic observations that no one can quite understand what he's actually saying and why he's saying it. But to me, it's meaningless. I think it's always darkest for the dawn. It'll make their ascent even more palatable for them because, mark my words, Man United will be better next year. It'll be difficult to be worse, I grant you, but they'll be better next year. If they can shuffle their deck, get rid of the dead wood, get rid of the waste of time players that are there, the Sanchos of the world, the Marcus Rashfords of the world that are no longer fit for purpose for the task that's in hand, which is to get Man United firing again and restoring some pride back in their fans.
You mentioned Jadon Sancho. He was picking up a European trophy last night.
Fantastic. And Chelsea will sling him back to Man United quicker than a quick thing from Quickland.
United face Hong Kong on Friday. But this is the thing about a post-season tour. Admittedly, it brings in £8 million. But from the players' point of view, do they really want to be doing this? They'll have to do without Andre Onana, Harry Maguire and Diogo Dalot, who've been diverted to India at the behest of club sponsor Apollo Tyres.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got to head out there and get their pictures taken by the executives of Apollo Tyres over in India.
So there is some upside to the tour then, that those three players won't be there. They might get a win in the next game. Look, I look at this and say this is the commercial reality of football. People may not like it, they may not agree with it, and they may decide that ultimately these monetary aspects of football are unpalatable to them. But it's the cost implications of sport now. The players want to be paid these ridiculous, absurd amounts of money. The transfer fees are at this level. Every cost implication, they want to be flown in private jets and they want to stay in the best hotels. All of it costs money. Football is a business. If you think it's not, grow up, it is. And this is part and parcel of it. And the fact is, the least they can do, these Man United players, is, be prepared to do these things because A, they've got the privilege currently of playing for arguably one of the greatest clubs in the history of football. And B, they've got adoration and adulation in equal measure when they're serving up absolute turgid tosh. So they should knuckle down, get on with it, and I'm sure they will do because I think on the whole we don't hear too many complaints. The problem for it is now is that I would wager you, if you look back over post-season and pre-season tours that Man United have been on, you'll see results that people go, hang on, they shouldn't be getting beat by this side. But because Man United are in the eyes of a storm, they're in the crosshairs of their own dilemmas.
Yeah, of course.
And Ruben Amorim has compounded that problem.
Yeah.
He has exacerbated it. He's made it worse. So he owes it to Manchester United and to the fans who are giving him an absolute pass. They're saying that group of players, irrespective of how bad they think they are in comparison to previous generations, should have done a damn sight better this season. There's enough talent on that field, enough quality, irrespective of how much people are paid for people and they haven't been worth what they've been paid. There's still enough talent on that field not to be finishing where they finished in the league and not to have done the things they've done this season. And that is upon Amorim and the players. I mean, not just the players, Amorim.
You get this thought in your mind, they've gone all the way to Malaysia, who've been watching them toil in the Premier League all season long. And the people out there who adore them are thinking, God, they are that bad.
Well, why should everyone else in England why should it only be the English fans that suffer? I mean, we want to give them the real Man United experience, don't we? So they're getting the real Manchester United experience, along with the poor, loyal fans in the UK that are spending their hard-earned money going every week to Old Trafford to be sent home miserable.
You talked about getting rid of the deadwood. Marcus Rashford, I don't know if he comes into that category in your eyes. He does, okay, yes. There we go. Rashford's advisors have held talks with Barcelona sporting director, former Chelsea player Deco. It seems United...
His advisors, you mean his brother?
Yeah. Okay. United ideally want to sell Rashford for 40 million.
Well, ideally, they'd probably like to sell him for 80 million, but what they want and what they get might be two different things.
Well, they may have to... The upshot is they might have to accept a loan.
Why? There's a lot of jeopardy in this situation for Marcus Rashford. People will think that it's a one-way transaction. United aren't just going to hand him to Barcelona because Barcelona might do them a favour by picking up his loans.
There's no way back for him at United.
No, I accept that, but there's no way back for him anywhere else if Man United decide to make it difficult for him as well. And there may well have to be some very strong conversations had. People think these conversations aren't capable of being had and it's a one-way transaction. Rashford wants to play for his country in the World Cup next year.
Yeah, but he also holds the cards in this one, doesn't he?
Does he? Because if he doesn't play for Manchester United this season, if he wants to play hard and fast with United, going, I want what I want and I'm only going to go if I get precisely what I want.
But United need him to go ASAP because they need him off the books because of his wage bill.
But not at any cost, I suspect. I suspect that United will be looking at it saying, well, everybody's got to come to the table and find a solution to this. And the solution to it possibly isn't that great for us, for him to wind down a contract, okay, by going out on loan again. If they get a 15 million, 20 million pound loan fee, okay, go out on loan. Right? But if Barcelona are going to do them a favour of picking up a proportion of his wages, then how much is 5 or 6 million going to make a difference to Man United? United do have some skin in this game, more to the point, skin in the outcome, by suggesting to the player, it's hard stuff to do. It means you've got to stare down the barrel of it and be prepared to not blink and say to a player, if we don't find a solution to our joint problem, you won't be playing next season, which means you won't be in the England squad. So you go away with your little brother and have a little think about how clever you want to be, about the solution that you need to find to our shared problem. You don't want to be here. We don't want you here. So ultimately, we need to find a solution that works for everybody and not just you.
I think Marcus should be grateful that he's not standing in front of you.
I think Marcus, if he was standing in front of a few people over the years that told him a few home truths, would probably be far better off for it.
Okay, so we'll see how United do in their next game. They face Hong Kong on Friday. But remember, they're going to this one without Anana, Maguire and Dalot because they're away to India to talk tyres. So you've got one or two alternative awards going at the moment. The pulling my hair out moment, and that was Sir Jim Ratcliffe, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Mail said to me, we want to do a column about sort of the awards that you would give for the season. Now, given my attitude would be a cross between Victor Meldrew and the Gremlins, it was always going to be a little bit poking at things rather than Serious Player of the Year award and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I just listened. I was looking through the different categories that I could choose, and one of them was like what really irritated me. Now, that was a long list. It was about as long as the Magna Carta. But I thought to myself, the ridiculousness of what Jim Ratcliffe had said and how it was gotten away with and how the Gary Nevilles and the Dan Rowans of the world that were fortunate enough to get the opportunity to interview Jim Ratcliffe didn't push back against the ridiculousness of it. And then I was actually saying it's even more ridiculous when you think about it, because this is a listed stock market business that shouldn't really be saying things that aren't potentially as accurate as they could be.
Yeah.
So that was one of my moments that I thought, well, that's just ridiculous. Is it because football has different rules than any other listed company? I think so.
Unsung hero Scott Parker. I think he's got something really good going at Burnley now.
I thought that was fair to do, because I think Scott Parker was criticised heavily by me as a result of his outbursts when he last went up with Bournemouth.
Manager of the season, a toss-up between Eddie Howe and Oliver Glasner.
Yeah. I think I lent towards Eddie because of the fact that they'd gotten into the Premier League top four and got into the Champions League and supported the winning of the second cup.
Not Slot.
No, because I think Slot comes from a different position. I think it's remarkable, but I think it's easy to give Slot the plaudits. I wanted to look a little bit broader, and I think that there's less opportunity for Newcastle to be as successful as they are, and certainly Palace.
Right. So, best sports event I saw live: Dubois versus AJ.
Yes.
Were you there?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I was going to contest that. I didn't realise
I was busy writing columns that infuriated everybody about the promoting of the event at the time. Yeah, of course I was there. Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua. Absolutely.
Having said that, if you had gone to Eubank Jr. versus Ben, that would have eclipsed that, I would have thought. All right. Okay.
This was for 96,000 people at Wembley Stadium between two bona fide top of their class in the heavyweight division, and you're going to give me that sentimental.
Yeah, but one fighter get blown away by the other. Whereas this went the duration in front of 80,000.
This was 5 rounds of highly charged, top-class heavyweight boxing with an unexpected outcome for the heavyweight championship of the world. Arguably one of the greatest plaudits that any sportsman can achieve. Once upon a time, it was the blueprint for what sportsman should be the heavyweight champion of the world.
But this is the backstory of the two fathers involved.
Yeah, but I don't buy into all that sentimental tosh that you lot want to buy into that's monetised everybody around it. I look at the quality of the experience. 96,000 people at the National Stadium watching the heavyweight championship of the world between two British fighters who were, once upon a time in Joshua's case, at the top of the tree.
And owner or chairman of the year, John W. Henry and Tom Werner.
There's my Liverpool plaudits.
Yeah.
Because here's the wonderful blueprint of not following what Man United and Arsenal did, which was replace a manager that's been there for years and go backwards. They went forwards, and they didn't have to spend any money to do it.
Owner chairman of the year, I thought Levy would have been in there.
How can you give it to Daniel? They finished 17th in the league. I don't do that. I leave that for you when you run around to Brighton or Newcastle, whichever your favourite club. It'll be Wrexham soon, won't it? You'll be down to Wrexham as soon as you bloody can, in amongst that little crowd. The fact of the matter is,
Ryan Reynolds earlier. Oh, there he is, back at me.
Yeah.
Sorry, on
Deadpool.
Yeah. Anyway, it was all worth a read and all extremely good. And it's all about whether people agree or don't agree with you, isn't it? It's your thoughts and it's your nomination.
It's not a popularity contest. It's simply a set of views about who I think where various categories could and should win. I think James Maddison having a dig at me was right. I think he's absolutely right. I was wrong. He was right, but I was right to some extent because he didn't play in the final, and the James Maddison effect has got teams relegated. Nearly got Spurs got relegated.
I quite liked your funniest moment, a toss-up between Neville's ban and Eubank Jr. promoter tirade.
Yeah.
When Eubank Jr. had a real ping at Eddie.
Well, he had a ping at Frank. He had a ping at Barry Hearn's son, and he had a ping at Cullis Howland. And of course, at the end of it, he got sued for defamation by Frank Warren, who had the last laugh. But I thought, if you watch that moment, I think most people went, he just said what?
I am delighted to welcome to the studio this morning a man we know well, a friend of this show, and he's back with us. One-time manager of Rangers, Queen's Park Rangers, and assistant to David Moyes at West Ham. These days, head of soccer and sporting director at Sporting Club Jacksonville. It's a very warm welcome to Mark Warburton. Good morning to you.
Jim, good morning, Simon. Good morning to you.
How have you been? Why are you not speaking with an American twang?
I'm too ingrained in that Cockney accent, Jim. That'll never disappear, unfortunately. I'm too old for that.
So how did this happen? Here we are, sporting director, head of soccer at Sporting Club Jacksonville in Florida.
New franchise, Jim. They were speaking to me for 18 months, almost 2 years, about going over there. And I was quite dismissive at the start. Obviously, I was looking at work in the UK. As the market over here changed, you have to either retire to the golf course or look for something different. And this was something different. The more I spoke to them, the opportunity unfolded, potential unfolded, and I've taken the opportunity.
You always, sparing his blushes, Simon, you always used to say to me, Mark, I never want to be idle. I've always got to be working. And you've been successful in the city in a different sphere of business. And then you get into football. You have never stopped. That's always been your attitude, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think you use it or lose it. I firmly believe in that, Jim. But I enjoy working. I don't enjoy being idle. For the first time in my life, I didn't work for a few months. You play golf a couple of times a week and you realise that's not for you. There's far more to life than that. So I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying being busy. It's men's professional, women's professional, elite academy. The academy is 10 to 15,000 kids in one academy that we bought. And it shows you the scale of football in the US, and it shows you the opportunity.
You were out in the US recently, Simon. Yeah. You had a mixed bag view, I think, of where it's going.
Don't forget, I put a team over there in 2006, Crystal Palace USA, so I looked at that market very extensively.
Yeah.
You've also seen, it's a well-trodden path. Darren Eales is over there for a period of time. You've had Paul Barber over there with the Vancouver Whitecaps. You've seen the late Paul Mariner, over there working. You've seen Steve Nicol working with the Revolution. So there's a lot of, people that have gone that way.
Yeah.
It's a huge opportunity there. Whether I think the quality is at a level, I don't. But I think the opportunity is significant. And the fascination for me was going over there was to see the different models of sport. The MLS is set up in a completely different way without relegation. But without relegation, the American sports don't lose the jeopardy. What they gain is something very different, which is the fact that no one dominates. It gives a fairer landscape for people to have an opportunity to be able to create different outcomes by the mechanisms that they deploy. The only thing is that without the investment structure or perhaps the changing of wage structures in those sports, it's going to be curious to see how the ambition of the MLS, that they told me themselves, was they're going to be in the top 5 leagues in world football.
We see that's what it comes down to, Mark, isn't it? They can talk themselves up about what they want to do, but when it all boils down to it, can football stateside actually have a lasting impact? Or from Beckham, Messi, Pochettino and others, is it always going to be confined, if you like, to the odd stardust arrival? People come and they go.
You need more than that, Jim. Simon's point is absolutely right. The American fans latch on to individuals. Do they support Inter Miami? Do they support Lionel Messi? They follow the brand as opposed to the individual, not the club. The USL and the other leagues are desperate to get fan buy-in, to get commitment into their clubs, local clubs. I understand that. Well, I have to look at it. I don't agree with the MLS in terms of... I was talking to a team, Simon. I was down to 2 for the job as head coach. They lost 15 of the last 16 games. And I asked the president, and he said, well, there's no problem. There's no threat. There's no relegation. There's no jeopardy, to use your term. And you have to have that. You can't have 15 meaningless games. Season ticket holders disappear for the last 15 games, and I hope they return for the start of the next season. You can't. For me, that's unacceptable.
Why don't they have it?
I think for me, I was told one huge owner who owns a huge NFL team said to me, why would I invest $1 billion to be relegated? And I said, well, don't get relegated. To which he looked at me like you can imagine the look I got. But but the fact is they're used to that security of being within the franchise. You look at San Diego, was it now $500-600 million franchise? They're talking about the first $1 billion franchise. I think the MLS...
Inter Miami's already worth that, aren't they?
They are. Is the MLS now close up? How many $1 billion franchise are you going to keep securing within the nation? I look at the growth of the USL in terms of the championship, in terms of League One, 24 clubs there, 14 clubs there, a number of expansion teams on the horizon. So the growth is there in the more community-based clubs as opposed to what is seen as a return investment business, MLS.
I want to get back to what you might do here in future, because I know wherever you've gone, you've made an impact. And I first met you when you were at Brentford, obviously. Then you're at Rangers in Scotland. We'll get to that. A lot happening there. The 49ers should be in control by mid-June mark. Nottingham Forest, Queen's Park Rangers, West Ham with Moisey. But things are happening stateside, Mark. You're in the right place, it would seem, at the moment, because the Club World Cup, all the emphasis is on, can Man City and Chelsea, one of the two, win it? Chelsea won last night, of course, the Conference League. And then the World Cup itself. I mean, they must think that this World Cup that's coming in 2026 is going to be the biggest show on earth.
It really is, Jim, but they want, obviously, local success. They need it. I spoke to Maurizio recently. He spoke about players in the world's top 200. I think he has one in Pulisic. The expectation will be a minimum of quarterfinals for the local hosts.
This is Pochettino.
Absolutely.
So there's huge expectation on Pochettino in the US.
They're a competitive nation. They demand success. They want to win. All I'm told about is win, win, win. But you've got one player in the world's top 200. He has a huge task in his hands to achieve that. So this goes back to Simon's earlier point about growing the game. They've got to improve the coaching. Jim, go down to the grassroots level. They've got to improve the quality and the scale of their coaching. These are all long-term aspects of the game that will improve the overall product. But right now they're looking at the more short-term fixes of Club World Cup and the World Cup.
What can England will get there? Of course they will. And Scotland and the rest of the home nations, if they follow their teams out there, what can travelling fans expect over in the US, Mark?
I think a magnificent experience, Jim. The size and scale of the nation, the types of temperatures they'll face in the US, different types of cities, completely different cultures. So I think it'd be a great experience for them, Jim. Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there talk that England could well be there or thereabouts?
Yeah, you have to. You look at the talent we produce. You know, that you speak to American fans, they repeat Argentina and England as being their two favourites, and France, Germany, Brazil coming behind according to them. But there's so much focus on the England team for obvious reasons. The Premier League is a magnificent brand watched everywhere. You go to any bar in the States, they're watching the Premier League. I can watch more 3 o'clock kickoffs from my front room chair than I can actually over here in the UK, Jim.
Half the price.
Half the price, indeed.
You know, we're talking about the American model, we're talking about the English model. Is there anything that England, the English model, can learn from what you've seen over there?
For me, Jim, it's two completely different markets. I'm seeing the opportunity of the scale of the United States. As I said, we have bought a youth club, a local independent league, what they call the ECNL, the Elite Clubs National League. Youth clubs dominate the landscape. Why? Because it's a pay-to-play model. So if you imagine 15,000 children paying $2,500, $3,000 a year, you're looking at a $40-45 million business at one club in youth soccer. So you can see the power. What's the negative? The street kids, as we call them, very likely, who cannot afford to play, are very often our best players. Go to London, our best players come from there. So there's positives and negatives, Jim, but I think the scale over there is just so vastly different to the UK. You have to adopt two different mindsets completely.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at these 3 football clubs in California. They've got a population of 39 million. There's 2 football clubs in Liverpool. They've got a population of just under 1 million. So look at the scale they've got. The challenge for Mark is Mark's going to sing this song because the USL will want relegation and promotion because it wants to be part of that framework. You are never going to get the American ownership model to change its vantage point. Never. Because their sports are built around a different premise. There's a completely different dynamic. And when I make the argument about jeopardy, I was more making it about the NFL, and the MLS will emulate the NFL to some extent if it can.
Yeah.
There is no dominance in the NFL because of the nature of the fact that the way that the teams are drafted, the way that the teams are configured, the way that the TV monies are distributed, it's all collectively pulled together. Even the shirt deals are pulled together. So ultimately it means that you don't have some guaranteed outcome where a monopoly like the Bundesliga is going to be won every year by Bayern Munich. We know who's going to win the Premier League most years, 1 or 2, 3 clubs. In American sports, it's set up differently, and the American ownership models are written completely differently. And one thing I looked over there was the big thing for me, which really appealed to me, is the most important person in a sports club is the bloody owner.
Or he would love
He's the one that gets a spectator shield. He's the one that gets to stand up and ultimately be applauded.
That's your dream, isn't it?
There's a balance to be had.
But Mark, here's the thing: the MLS is lagging behind now, though, isn't it? To be quite honest, the Saudi Pro League's in town. In years gone by, I watched Steven Gerrard play in the US, and we've seen Rooney play in the US. Nowadays, big name players and those not so big are heading to Saudi.
No, I understand that. Hence the coaching aspects and making sure the youth comes through the right quality because of the sheer scale of numbers, Jim. That's the obvious one. But that's a long-term plan. But I think for me, what appealed to, I wasn't singing the song so much about the US. So I like the idea of promotion and relegation. I understand why they're doing it. I understand their model of a Division 1 whereby the requirements are a 15, 20,000 seat stadium, more intimate within the community. They need the communities in the US to buy into their team. It has to be their team. It can't be Messi over here, Ronaldo over here, or Beckham, whoever it may be. They have to get that community investment. If they can do that, then I think they're in a far stronger position.
Just interestingly in the passing, is it true what we hear, the impact that Messi has made in the US has been...
It's phenomenal.
Uncanny.
It's incredible. I mean, you walk around, you're used to seeing, I always speak about on holiday, you see Man U shirts, Liverpool shirts, England shirts, you always just see it, the brand reach.
Yeah.
Messi shirts, pink Messi shirts everywhere.
Into Miami.
Everywhere you go. But as I said, the earlier comment, is it to Inter Miami? Is it to Lionel Messi? I think it's obviously to the individual.
Sure. Is there any degree of excitement and appeal about the Club World Cup that's almost upon us?
Not so much, if I'm honest. I mean, it's obviously in certain sports stations and we try and promote it, but is the average fan talking about it? No, I'm trying to encourage them. So go back to this youth system that we're looking at, I'm in charge of. And I'm saying to them, what games did you watch last night? Did you watch the Barca-Inter game? What an unbelievable game of football, etc. No. The parents aren't watching. They're watching the baseball or the basketball. You have to get this buy-in to the international games and, of course, the Club World Cup by follow-on.
Sure.
So it's getting some press, obviously, Jim, but it's not as much as I would have expected.
But it'll be interesting over there because if you put it in Miami, you've got a Hispanic community that's seeded in football.
Right.
If you put it in New York, you've got an Irish, Portuguese, Italian community that's seeded in football.
Yeah.
So whilst it might not find its way into the Midwest of America and maybe not into Jacksonville, but it will find its way into places like New York City where the communities are made up of football fervent ethnicities that or nations, sorry, not ethnicities, nations that are seeded in football.
Did you say you go back tomorrow to the States?
I'll go back tomorrow, Jim. Yeah, just on that point, no, just talking about, they did a local poll in Jacksonville. 410,000 soccer fans that voted, support the game, watch the game. Now you're talking about no pro team in Jacksonville. So this is you see the opportunity around these various communities around the US. So
It's been that way for a while though, hasn't it? It's been the biggest growth sport in college for a very long time.
Absolutely.
It's just the drop off when it goes into the older age groups.
That's a great point. So you have the college system. You have the best universities, private jets, unbelievable facilities. And it's a 4-month season, which is bizarre. They're trying to change, but at the moment 4 months.
Yeah.
And then where do they go? So there's 23 professional women's teams in a nation of 380 million people. So I'm getting called by players from university, top Division 1 universities. There's nowhere for them to go. So that you can see the expansion opportunity is still there.
Yeah.